Hello, and welcome to Life with Francy podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversation like mental health, self-love, self-care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a place where we support one another in business and personal life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. On today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Suzanne. I found her through Podmatch, an amazing place for podcast hosts and podcast guests to make an amazing collaboration. And Suzanne is the director of Fit4Defense Consulting, operating a unique anti-bullying program called Power ED. This is a holistic life program that inspires confidence in participants to be heard, safe in the community, and free from abuse through assertive communication, self-defense, and awareness exercise. So I am so excited to have this conversation with her. So welcome to the show, Suzanne. What is life with you?
Thanks so much for having me. Life with me is very busy. I just had my birthday yesterday, so I
Oh, happy
celebrated
birthday.
my 70th birthday, which just blew my mind. Uh, but
That's
it was
awesome.
family and it was wonderful. So yeah, I'd love to tell you a bit about power. It's power ed. It's power education.
Okay.
Because if you look at any situations of bullying and aggression, it's racism, discrimination, the whole ball of wax. You'll find it's an issue of power and control. So power education is it's based on four pillars: attention, awareness, avoidance, and action. So I'll tell you a bit about these pillars. Attention is about the program. Well, I should tell you a bit about Power Ed. It's a curriculum. It's an actual 10-week curriculum that is designed to build confidence and strength and self-awareness. So this is done through a number of different exercises. And there's the actual physical self-defense, as well as the discussions and the different exercises that we do in these areas of attention, awareness, avoidance, and action. So in attention, it's all about tuning in to the here and now, coming back to the moment and what's happening, and developing those observation skills. And I work with a lot of at-risk kids and traumatized groups, and for many, they're down the rabbit hole in terms of technology and being
Mhm.
on social media, being on their phones and gaming, and bringing back to, hey, look, what's right next to you in the world. Get your head up. So that is the attention part, and there's a whole bunch of really interesting exercises that I do to kind of expand that. And as you know, where your attention goes, your energy flows.
Yep, that's what they say.
So if you want to make changes and you want things to be positive, you've got to get in that groove. The heart and soul is awareness. So there's a number of exercises that look at self-study. And over the years, I deal with all ages: children, mainstream youth, at-risk youth. I have a seniors program,
Mm.
and I have a trauma, well, a women's program that deals with like extreme trauma. But you know, when you're talking about awareness, you're talking about that self-study where you really understand what it is you believe and what you want and what you need. And you gain those skills to be able to express that to other people. And
Mm.
this is where real confidence begins, where you can examine your values and your boundaries and know what those things are so that you can express them and set some boundaries. So it is, as I said, it's the heart and soul, and it's all about communication and really, looking at those limitations that we put upon ourselves through our experiences. And they're protective. I mean, they're very important limitations and
Yeah.
boundaries. But to have the strength to kind of break through some of those and make some of those changes with the support of others is great. So also part of that self-awareness is, as you said, it's about loving yourself and caring for others. And loving yourself can be very difficult.
Yeah.
So work, and as I said, this program is fun. The exercises I do are tremendously fun. So I'll do a physical self-defense exercise that looks at boundaries, at physical boundaries, and then I'll move that conversation to talk about emotional and, mental boundaries that we set upon ourselves. And it's right. I always say it's quite funny because I particularly teach at-risk, high-risk kids, because that I developed the program for them, and that's where I really enjoy. And I'll be working with a really high-risk group, and at the end of, we'll be having a discussion about something, and they'll say, "Wow, this was really cool. Can we do this again?" And I laugh. Yeah, in the olden days, we used to call this having a conversation.
Isn't it sad? Oh my God. Just to
But
have a
they,
normal conversation without cell phone, without anything, just getting to know one another. But I have to know, like, how did this mission started for you?
well, my background is in social services. I have over 50 years of community-based social services. I've started
Wow.
organizations in mental health from the ground up, and I've started an organization for at-risk youth and addictions from the ground up. So, and then I moved into
Thank you.
I know, making sure that, now I work in quality assurance, making sure organizations have the policies and procedures to do best practice for people. So I've kind of run that course, and parallel to that, I'm a martial artist. So I'm an advanced practitioner of Tai Chi, which I was prescribed for my ADHD energy, very young in life.
I'm
And
sorry about that. I get it. I so get it because I tell my friend, like, girl, you have to put your daughter in something physical because she has so much energy and she got anger issues too. So I'm like, she needs something that has a good structure and she's physical to get some of that out because she got way too much energy.
absolutely, and martial arts are the best place to start, because they teach, it's not only a place to get the energy out, but it teaches discipline, and respect for others. And as I started with, that sense of strength and confidence in yourself, because we can all do hard things, and we can all do them and make it fun, and if we're doing it together and we're supporting each other. So yeah, I would check out some programs for that little one, because
Yeah,
it's a great.
yeah.
So I ended up getting, prescribed Tai Chi, which kids find hilarious because I am very fast and energetic, and and I still do it. But
I
I came
love it.
I came to
Oh, I
Vancouver.
want to be like you when I grow up. I'm so sorry. I'm just so excited. I love your energy.
Well, I came to Vancouver, and I went to a Tai Chi class, and the Tai Chi teacher was a really young karate sensei. And he said, "What are you doing here? You should be at karate." And I said, "I don't want to do karate. I have to do Tai Chi." And he said, "Well, okay, you can keep doing Tai Chi, but please come to one of my classes. That's all I ask. One class. If you don't like it, I won't bother you again." And I went to one class, and I walked out the door and bought my gi. So I have been doing karate a lot of my life, most of my life, and Tai Chi. So going back to how this developed, I was working in childcare, youth care, and I really recognized that we were criminalizing social conduct with kids, because they were getting jailed and they were getting punished for their behaviors. And their behaviors were really a result of trauma and abuse and really neglectful histories. I mean, these kids, it wasn't unusual that they would have been in like 14, 15 foster homes, right? So I figured that, I realized that maybe there was a place to do conflict management with youth care workers, so they could handle those behaviors and they could feel safer physically around kids. And we're going back quite a ways. Now there's a number of programs that have been developed for people in social services for nonviolent practices. But at that time, there was nothing. So I began my experiment, and I started experimenting with self-defense, and it just grew. It grew. And then I started doing women's self-defense. I've written a book. It's called Bullying Stops Here. And the first chapter of the book, I got a call one day from a woman, and she said, "You Suzanne?" And I said, "Yep." And she says, "I heard it on the streets that you're okay." And I said, "Well, oh, and who am I talking to?" And she says, "This is Rhonda." She says, "I'm a sex trade worker, and we have trouble, and we need self-defense because there's a serial killer, and he's choking out women with piano wire, and I've lost two of my friends, and we need self-defense. And they say that you could help us." And I said, "Well, I'm not sure I can, but I would be willing to sit down and talk to you to try." So she said, "Okay, I'm going to call a meeting." 2 o'clock in the morning at a cafe
Oh my
on
God.
the strip, right? On the strip. And I was like, "Oh." So I thought, well, you check it out. So I showed up, and 50 women came. Rhonda had actually booked the back of the restaurant. She had reserved it, and 50 women showed up. And they talked about, how scared they were and what they needed. And I said, "Well, I've never done this before. I'll be really honest with you. I'm willing to give it a go on 3 conditions. 1, you show up. I'm not going to be there waiting for you. 2, you try to come straight, like not too gooned on drugs and alcohol. And the third one, you just give it 100%. When you're with me, when I ask you to do something, you just try. You just do what you can do, but 100%. And they all went, yeah, we really want this. We really need this. So Rhonda says, "Okay, that's cool. Let's do it." She says, "We'll start at 7 in the morning at the church basement." And I said, "What?" And she says, "Yeah, when everybody gets off work, because everybody gets up at different times and it won't work any other time in the day." So I taught self-defense to these women, and I learned, I talk about the book, how they transformed, and how I saw this sense of community they had, and they started looking out for each other, and they started trusting their guts and not getting into cars. And that's the third A, is avoidance. It's really understanding what risk is, and protecting yourself and avoiding things. So they started to do that, and they started to support each other to do that. So I was like blown away, right? I was going,
Wow.
I've got something here. And I went to my peers, and I learned all kinds of techniques that I started to hone my skills to be able to teach people that don't have any pre-training. And it just took off from there. So the avoidance thing is huge. It's a huge part of the program as well. And then the final one is action. It's to be able to defend yourself if you're in a situation that you need to. And having that is quite a confidence. And it can be as simple as knowing how to be in a defense position to protect your center line and your vital points. I mean, we're talking really basic, anybody can do things. Like it's an amazing the difference I can see in 10 weeks when people go through the program. And then action is not only being able to defend yourself, but it's about choice and decision. And it's about making healthier choices and better decisions when it comes to taking care of yourself. Right?
Yeah.
So a very basic concept of self-defense, which is not just it's the whole
The whole
package.
picture. Yeah, I can see.
Paying attention, being aware of who you are, learning to take that space, learning to communicate, being aware of how you stay safe and how you connect to allies and all of that stuff. And then finally, at the end of the day, if somebody is aggressive, you can deal with it. So I'm talking about power ed, it's power education. But I also do this work in corporations with violence in the workplace and harassment.
Wow.
Right? And I speak on the topic, and I work with social service groups as well to bring this kind of an awareness to them in terms of how they deal with their clients. So it's there's a lot to it. I love it. I'm continually honing my skills and learning from people to make it more effective and better. I did a workshop yesterday on Friday. I guess that was yesterday. No, yesterday was Saturday. Friday, I did a workshop in BC. We have an association of childcare workers, and I did a provincial conference with them, and it really brought me back to my roots.
Oh, I
Because
love that.
that's where I started, with those people that are taking care of our kids that really need a leg up. And yeah.
This gives me so much hope. Because you hear so much negative in the world that, especially teenagers and troubled kids, and just talking to you and you just talking with this so much love and understanding for them, and you creating these programs, to help people. Cause yeah, when it comes to self-defense, I got nothing over here. uh,
I got to get in there with you.
yeah. I do need it.
Right. So one of my messages and what my shout outs, and it's also in my book, Bullying Stops Now, is we have to take action. Like you say, it's not okay to just go, oh, did you see there's another shooting and blah, 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 and have a day where you wear a pink shirt and call it anti-bullying day. We, as communities, we need to step up.
Yeah.
And so in the book, and I've done this a number of times in my life, I've created anti-bullying strategies in schools and community centers and places. And the steps to do that are in the book. And it really, it's not that difficult, but it needs to involve everybody that's involved. So the bullies and the bullied and the parents and the educators, and they need to work together to create a message that no, it's not okay, right?
Yeah.
And that when it happens, they deal with it. And people are so conflict adverse, they're so afraid to actually have that conflict to say, no, this is not okay. And it's not a matter of prosecuting the bullies. It's about bringing everybody into a place where they, where the bully and the bullied sit down and have that conversation about what it feels like.
Yeah, you have an interesting question on your profile that says, "Why would you teach self-defense to a bully? Won't they just use it to hurt someone?" So, yeah, tell us more about that.
Well, confident, healthy, empathetic kids don't hurt anybody. And that's what I'm creating. Kids that are aware of what it feels like to be hurt and shamed, it doesn't happen. One of the first exercises in Power Ed is they sit down and I divide them into three and I ask them three questions. What's a bully? Why do people bully? And what can you do about bullying? And the kids all do it in three little groups and they move the paper around. And then they have to get up and present to each other. And 1 in 4 kids in a classroom is bullied, Francy. 1 in 4. So I look at my group, I might have 20 kids. I see the little light bulb go on. I know who the bullies are because they're looking at a page that describes them in a way they've never seen themselves, as weak, as having problems.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And they've never seen that before. And yet nobody, it's anonymous because they're just in a group, but I can tell by their faces. And it's just such an amazingly powerful exercise. And it literally, I've literally seen it change lives right there and then.
Wow. Yeah, I wish more people would do that, just to, give them a different perspective of what a bully is, in hopes to understand it and make some changes themselves.
Absolutely. And it is about, so if it is a situation where it's in a matter of controlling others, then you got to provide the skills that they can learn to control themselves. And it's as simple as that. And my thing that I say to is mastering yourself is true power. It's a real martial arts kind of
Oh, yeah.
but it is true power. You want to have power? Master yourself.
Oh my God, yes. Like I have seen it some people at work, I've seen it in the past year, couple of years. Last year I finally gave in and I was like, nah, let me have a mental health diagnosis to see how is my brain because there's something going on. I have
Yeah.
tried everything that everybody says. I say if you tell me scratch your head 3 times a day, I will scratch my head 3 times a day in hopes that it will help me feel better. But it wasn't until I had the mental health diagnosis that I was like, oh, I can give myself compassion and understanding and be more self aware. So now, when any situations at work or personal life, people coming at me, I can be like, okay, is it me or is it them? So
Yeah.
if it's me, I gotta step back and like give myself compassion and understanding. If it's them, then I have still to step back, not let that affect me, not react to it, and give them compassion or whatever. And then some have seen it as weakness, and others is like, wow, the power that you have had in the past couple of years to restrain yourself. People don't get that. I have 7 mental health diagnoses. Like,
Yeah.
for me to stop, that's a miracle in itself.
That is like such a perfect example. It's such a perfect example of being able to make those changes, set those boundaries, and put that self-care into place for yourself. And yeah, that's incredible. And the thing too, I mean, I've added a lot more mindfulness into my training because if we can control our emotions through it by changing our thoughts, and there's some really simple ways to self-regulate. And when you're dealing with panic attacks and you're dealing with strong physical reactions that are really beyond your control, and you can develop some of those strategies to like calm yourself and to be able to kind of change your thinking or ways to really move that, the difference is unbelievable.
Mhm.
And for me, like one of the things, the suicide rate is so high with kids, and it's very much connected to bullying. So bullying is connected to so many social issues, and not indirectly, directly.
Yeah.
And with suicide, like when you have a kid that's suicidal and you can give them the skills to kind of change those thoughts, into something else, you can be saving lives. And the other thing about power ed is that I do get into those subjects. I've been criticized for it, but I don't back off it.
Yeah.
Because kids, they don't get to talk. They don't get to talk about those things. Cyberbullying and suicide and sexual abuse.
I know.
And this is the trauma.
Yeah. I held shame and guilt for over a decade and it
Yeah.
was eating me alive. And I have been free from it maybe 6 months to a year. Uh,
Uh,
so, yeah, I totally understand. You're hitting my heart when you're
uh,
talking. As you was talking and explaining, oh no, I'm gonna get emotional. As you was talking and explaining your program, self-soothing over here. I was thinking about my teenage self. I can't imagine, like you were talking about kids in foster home and all that stuff. It's like super tough, and I don't want to like compare like whatever, but I was going through a rough time at home, and like my biological father was like, tell that he gave me a PhD on abuse, so
uh,
for me, so I can help
yeah.
others, you know. So when you're talking about troubled teenagers that just need a program like that to just be understood and give them different tools,
Yes.
because once I dealt with depression. You know, after I got out of that situation, I went into deep depression and I was working through it. But then I got to see him 6 years later, and I was introduced to panic attacks.
Absolutely.
So I was like, oh, amazing. So let's add another one. So let's see what's this about. And then that one, like depression, it was more of I had a familiar feeling because of my family. So depression was more welcome. You know, I was working through it. I didn't like it, but it was like, it's okay. It's depression. My
Was
family deals with it and everything else. When anxiety came, I was like, oh, hell to the now. I have seen this. This is not right. What is this? I feel like I can't breathe.
mhm.
I kept repeating, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. Like, I'm like, what is wrong with me? So, like, after like the sixth one or whatever, I was like, okay, no, I need to understand my brain. And that's how I became with the survival kit, which
Yes.
is just remember how to breathe,
Breathe.
walk it out, ask for support. Depending on your religious belief, a prayer or positive thoughts. And Spotify, I have like a million playlists, so it depends on the emotion. So, but all of this came after a decade of struggling,
Yeah.
and then the freedom came 2 years ago when I started loving myself.
And now you're sharing it with the world. You're giving it back to the world, which is so awesome.
I
And
have
as
to because, like you
conversation,
say, you have seen it. You know, we all need love, and
mhm.
just to know that I understand, and maybe if I even don't understand, I can be there for you. I can hold you because I might relate to the pain and like guilt and shame and responsibility that doesn't belong to us, belongs to the person that hurt us.
In a sense of not being worth, having worth, right?
Oh yeah, that's a new one. That's like maybe a month learning about my self-worth. Baby steps.
Anyway, so years ago, little was known about mental health, right?
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. It's just been in the last kind of 10 years, really, that if I mean, people were just bullied and marginalized for any those kind of problems
Yeah.
they were
No.
having. And post-traumatic stress, they only started to research with the vets coming out of Vietnam.
Hmm.
So before that, they had
Nobody
never
was talking about it.
looked. Yeah.
They
Yeah.
didn't
So,
have a name for it.
but yeah, I love it. This is what we need to do. We need to talk about it. We need to get it out there. People need to think about it, and then they need to figure out how to take action and how to say no. Like, this is not the kind of world we want. We want a world where we care for each other, where we support each other. And
Yes.
that's where I'm going with it.
I love it. And your mission is needed. Thank you so much for your service. Is there anything else that you would like my listeners to know?
Well, they can just go to my website, fit4defense.ca. And if they would like to know how to get a anti-bullying strategy going in their organization, I'd be more than willing to help. I do a train the trainer. I train people to offer the programs. And as I said, they're for children and youth and women and seniors. And with seniors, again, it's that attention piece. Slips, trips, and falls is the number one cause of death with seniors, number two cause of hospitalization, which leads to death. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, helping them to be able to hold their heads up, and yeah, it's really important. So anyway, if anyone's interested, I would love to further the conversation.
Yes, and I will have all your links in the description of the episode for people
Well,
to find.
it's such a pleasure to talk to you.
Oh, it was the feeling is mutual. I could talk to you forever. I love your energy. I love your mission. I love your passion. Like I'm here for all of it.
Thank you very much.
Well, hope you
Uh,
enjoyed this episode as much as I did. You can find my podcast in all major platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and my YouTube channel. You know the deal. Like and subscribe. Hope you have a blessed day. Bye
Bye.
bye.